Hey guys, this is Kai from WCC, and today we'll be looking at probably one of the most interesting decks to have come out of My Glorious Justice, and also the last one that we haven't talked about yet, and that is Granblue Standard. Now, Granblue went from probably one of the worst decks in the game to one of the best decks in the game. It is probably the best protect deck in the metagame right now because it has some really good matchups against Bermuda, but it also has a very interesting deck list and is able to utilize all of the new mechanics that have been given to Standard Vanguard in recent times. So we'll go through the deck first, talk about some of the cool stuff that you can do with it, and then we'll talk about the matchups and the metagame and all that jazz. So first off, immediately you can see there is a big change from other decks in Standard, and that is you can run 12 crit. Now, a lot of other decks, they've gotten their third set of crit triggers now, but to play the third crit set, you have to give up draw nulls. And having draw nulls is just such a big advantage that a lot of decks just don't want to give up. You get to run a draw trigger, which is okay. It functions as a null and it frees up grade 1 space. But when you're Granblue, you actually just don't care. You don't want draws. You mill so much with this deck, you just deck out so quickly. Running draws adds that inconsistency to the deck that it doesn't want. So you can get rid of the draws and run the 12 crit instead, and then just run grade 1 null guards, because you can also salvage nulls in this game. So it's very good. So the null has its uses. Also, the new grade 1 nulls have an on-ride ability, which allows you to draw and discard. So discarding is actually a big thing with this deck. You run several cards which cannot be called from hand, so you want to dump them as much as possible and fill up that drop zone. So grade 1 nulls over the draw nulls, and then run 12 crit. That is the way to go in my opinion with this deck. And the 12 crit really adds that extra aggression early on. You can attack very quickly with this deck, and then they'll just go from 3 damage or to 4 damage very quickly, and then you'll just be able to kill them because everything gets really fat and your Vanguard gets crit. So moving on to the grade 1s, you're running old school Romario, grade 1 nulls as discussed before. You're also running Ripple Banshee and 1 copy of this Troubadour Cadaver Alti? Can't really see the card. This card. Yeah. Alfie. Okay. So you'll see in this deck there's a bunch of cards that are run as like one-offs or very low copies of it, and that's because with this deck now you have this new Greed Shade card, and that lets you salvage things that you might want and not necessarily immediately need. So we're only running this at a low amount because in case your opponent has been denying damage to you, you want to just get 1 counterblast to do a play. This will help you get that. A lot of people run the Dancing Cutlass. It's okay. It takes up too much space now for a card that can get you out of those situations, but you're not necessarily going to be put into those situations. So devoting like 3 or 4 slots to that is not that great when you actually got some really good cards now. You can running the grade 1 null takes up space, so you don't necessarily have that extra space for something like Cutlass. Romario, definitely still in. 12k booster is pretty much just a 12k booster. If you ride it, on ride you get to shove a grade 3 into your soul, and that immediately sets off your Cocytus on your first grade 3 ride. So calling 2 from Cocytus compared to 3, calling 3 is actually a big deal. It is actually a big deal. You call like 2 fronts and a boost, and you maybe already have something else on the field. That's a full field. While 2 will either just get you maybe just 2 cards to attack with at the front, or 1 full column. 3, being able to call 3 is really nice, especially when you have other things that also you don't want in the early game. You get a Flanger, you get a Skull Dragon. You don't want those early. Shove them in and set off your Cocytus. Grade 2s, you've got your good old Ruin Shade still in the deck because he hits numbers and fills up your drop zone. Does exactly what you want. And it also gets around that problem where if you go second against a force deck, you can't hit their Vanguard. Ruin Shade takes care of that problem easy peasy. You have Greed Shade. Greed Shade is a new card that got released, and it's just probably one of the best cards for Granblue. Basically, it gets power, becomes 14k when you have stuff in the drop zone, and then you get to filter your hand for something to get back something that's more relevant for the situation. So I want to ride another grade 3 next turn. You call it out, just discard something, and then get back another Currrently. Bam. If you need some more guard, you need a null. Just discard some useless card in your hand and get a null. This solves a lot of your problems, turns your entire drop zone into pretty much just your hand, and enables you to just run like 1 or 2 copies of a lot of the good stuff. And the good thing about this is that for something like Flanger, you can then just filter your hand into something like 0, 1, and 2s, and then just go for the unblockable attack. Very great card. Another great card is the Ghost Ship. Now, this card cannot be played from hand. You can ride it, but you can't call it. Can't call to Guardian Circle. But the effect it has is crazy good. Gets fat by itself, where attacks gets like 15k, and at the end of the battle, you retire it and draw a card. So if you call it out from your Currrently or from Baskerk, comes out, attacks fat, then you draw a card and you plus again. Your hand just adds more to the hand. Overall, a great card. We only run 2 of this because you can't actually call it from your hand, so you have to get to the drop zone somehow. But even if you don't get a Ghost Ship, you have so much mill you'll eventually get it, or you have other ways to plus, like your Banshee and your Greed Shake can help filter as well. So it's not totally bad if you don't get a copy of it into the drop zone, but it's always good because it makes those numbers. Moving on to the grade 3s, the Skull Dragon, also a great card. It's still in there because it just gets really big. We're running Currrently and Baskerk. Only 1 copy of Baskerk. Currrently is your ideal grade 3 ride. It's going to fill up your drop zone. It's going to call a whole field, and then it's going to bash face really bigly. Gets 20k with a crit. They've got to guard that attack. Baskerk is nice when you're getting to the later stage of the game who you don't want to mill for anymore. Your field is pretty much fully built. It's not getting retired backwards, just like all Romarios and all that. You go into Baskerk to just be able to get something back. You get back one of your finishes, and you don't have to mill for. So it's able to just let you play something while you're near the end of the game. And then your big finishes are Scaredic. Yeah, this is now an R18. This adult-only video now. And we've got Violence Flanger. Now, Violence Flanger has really gotten buffed because of how free your entire deck is and how you can easily just filter out everything in your hand. Great card. Also, if you playing Protect 2 for that specific game, gets fat. Great finisher. Scaredic, a lot of people think Scaredic is not that great of a finisher because it gets 30k, 142k with a crit, and that's about it. Easily nulled. But you have to not look at this in just this vacuum where it's a 42k near the end of the game where you're about to lose next turn. Because with this deck, you're attacking for huge numbers and being aggressive from the early game on. From grade 2, you're ideally just bashing your opponent as much as you can. And then grade 3, everything gets huge. This Ghost Ship is 24k by itself. With boosted by Romario, that's 36. This Skull Dragon, 10k, 10 in the soul, becomes 32 by itself. Then boosted again, it's 44. Currrently, when you reach that 20, it gets 20k in a crit. So you're hitting something like 44k with Romario and a crit. All of that can only be really effectively guarded by null guards. And you only have 4 null guards in the game. So when you reach that end game, they've already used a lot of their null guards because of your pressure and aggression. They really don't have the perfect hand to guard your Scaredics anymore. And if they've healed on that turn when you really wanted to go for that kill, Scaredic is your best buddy to go for the win. Unless you can confirm you're getting a crit with something like Flanger, and then you can just confirm that kill. Getting that crit in a situation where you've been putting on all that pressure onto your opponent, that is why there is that card is in the deck. So overall, in this metagame, Bermuda is the top dog in the deck. Funnily enough, this deck does pretty well against Bermuda because both players, they're just punching each other with like giant columns. But Granblue has the third arm, so it always has a null as well. just to deflect some of the big attacks from Bermuda, well, it's punching back just as hard. So eventually, Bermuda just kind of just runs out of hand and runs out of steam, and you just win. The bad matchup for this deck is something like other protect decks. So if you randomly meet an OTT or an Angel Feather that can really stall you out, that's when you probably lose. You just deck out and lose. But luckily enough, those decks aren't that prevalent in the current metagame anymore, so that's fine. This deck is actually okay against Excel. You can actually play Protect 2s and then just call grade 2s out for intercept value and then still punch for like huge numbers. So compared to other Protects against Excel, this does kind of okay. It's the most aggressive Protect deck in Standard Vanguard, pretty much. So the other deck that probably will give this a hard time though is Dimension Police. If they're running a very high crit build, they go force 2 against you and you're stuck on 3 damage for the entire game. You have a counter charge from your Alfie, but because they get that extra crit early on and pressure you from 3 damage, you're like 1 turn short from beating them. So that's the big difference between Dimension Police and the Bermuda matchup. Dimension Police gets that extra crit, so you can't really effectively guard them and set up in time. But otherwise, this deck is pretty good. Look into it. If you like Protect, this is the Protect deck for Standard at the moment. And it will probably be pretty decent going forward into the new metagame, because more and more decks are trying to catch up to Bermuda, but they need to catch up in a way where they need to be more aggressive, and this handles the aggression and then deals the damage as well. So go for it. Granblue is good. Granblue is the best deck. Blah, blah, blah. See you in the next video. Bye.